For decades, the music industry was basically this impenetrable fortress with heavy iron gates.
Right, completely locked down.
Yeah, you have the gatekeepers, the A&R reps, the label executives, the radio programmers standing right at the drawbridge just deciding who was allowed inside.
Handing out permission slips, essentially.
Exactly. If you wanted the world to hear your voice, you basically had to beg for their permission. But today, the fortress hasn't just been breached. It's been entirely vaporized.
It really has.
You are now looking at a landscape where, a building engineering student in Nigeria and a warehouse manager in South Africa wield the exact same global distribution power as a multi-million-dollar corporate record label.
It is just a breathtaking collapse of the old hierarchy, honestly. We are no longer observing this top-down, permission-based distribution of culture.
Right.
We are inside this totally decentralized, hyper-agile, and honestly beautifully chaotic ecosystem where the artists they own the means of production now.
Which is exactly why we are pulling apart this massive stack of sources today.
Right.
We're doing a deep dive into the March 2026 Independent Music Showcase.
And it is a massive stack.
Oh, it's huge. We are looking at 21 distinct artists from literally all over the globe. I mean, we're jumping from the streets of Tacoma, Washington, to Perth, Australia.
Down to Kuruman, South Africa.
Yeah, and across to Austin, Texas. And our mission today, for everyone listening, isn't just to, play a list of songs or tell you what to add to your gym playlist. We're going to really unpack the mechanics of how these creators are operating right now.
Because they aren't just making music anymore.
No, not at all. They are functioning as their own venture capitalists, their own PR firms, practically their own software developers.
And I think it's crucial to approach this deep dive not simply as a consumer looking for new tracks, Approach this as a masterclass in modern human resilience and economic strategy. Because what these 21 artists represent is really the bleeding edge of how human beings process anxiety, how they leverage technology, and how they communicate their raw, lived experiences in a world that is just incredibly noisy.
Okay, let's map out where we are heading today. First, we're going to start by looking at what we're calling the rhythm architects.
Mm-hmm.
The artists using these globalized Afro beats and dancehall sounds to build massive structural ideas.
Right, the foundations.
Then we'll pivot to look at the economics of the independent street hustle, where the music is practically a byproduct of an LLC.
The venture capitalists.
Yeah, exactly. Then we'll strip away the bravado and examine the deeply vulnerable side of modern songwriting, the really hyper-specific anxieties of 2026. And finally, we will break down the wild cards, the veterans and the multi-hyphenates who are just actively rewriting the algorithms.
It's a really wide terrain to cover, but the connective tissue through all of it, the thing you have to keep in mind, is an absolute refusal to wait for permission.
Okay, let's jump straight into the first movement, the rhythm architects. We are seeing this phenomenon where artists are utilizing these massive, highly infectious global rhythms to deliver incredibly complex and sometimes really structural messages. I want to start with an artist out of Nigeria named habefe.
Oh, he is a perfect case study for this new wave.
Right. So looking at his background, habefe was born in 2006. He actually started releasing music in 2022 under the moniker KIZZAB, but he completely rebranded in 2025.
A very intentional shift.
Yeah, and his sound is described in our sources as the unexpected flavor of Afrobeats. He has this track called Let You Go, which deals with the really heavy nuance of unrequited love, and then a newer, highly kinetic track called Coochie Coochie.
Both very structurally distinct.
But the thing that caught my eye, the thing that blew my mind, isn't just the discography, is his day job. habefe is currently studying building engineering at Obafemi Awolowo University.
Which, just for context for the listener, is one of the most rigorous and prestigious academic institutions in West Africa.
Real.
Oh, absolutely. The engineering curriculum there is famously demanding. It's no joke.
Wow. Okay, so his bio explicitly notes that he approaches his songwriting like a design project. Like, it's structured, intentional, built to last. Now, my initial reaction to that was, I don't know, a bit of skepticism.
Sure.
I mean, mixing concrete and calculating load-bearing walls feels just worlds apart from writing a catchy pop hook. So I have to ask, does an engineering background actually translate to mixing a track, or is that just really clever marketing?
Oh, it translates fundamentally. In fact, it might be the absolute ultimate superpower for a modern producer.
Okay. You're going to have to unpack that for me.
Well, think about what a building engineer actually does, right? They are tasked with managing invisible forces. They have to understand how tension, compression, and weight distribution act upon a physical structure to keep it standing up.
Right, so the building doesn't collapse.
Exactly. In audio production, you are doing the exact same thing, just with acoustic energy instead of steel and concrete.
Wait, how does acoustic energy have weight? I mean, it's just sound.
So take the sub-bass in an Afrobeat track. That low-frequency oscillation physically moves massive amounts of air. It has literal physical acoustic weight. If you put too much sub-bass in a mix,
The track collapses.
yes, it becomes muddy, it distorts the speakers, the listener literally gets ear fatigue. It's the sonic equivalent of putting a massive, heavy concrete roof on really flimsy wooden walls.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, a great producer acts as a sonic engineer. They manage the tension of the verse. They calculate the release of the chorus. They ensure that the rhythmic weight of the percussion doesn't, crush the delicate, high-frequency melody of the vocal.
So habeve's transition from his old identity to this new one.
It shows a level of intentionality that perfectly mirrors drafting a blueprint. He isn't just throwing paint at a canvas to see what sticks. He is engineering a vessel for emotional resonance.
That makes the emotional weight of his songs so much more interesting to me now. Like, in Let You Go, the track is described as exploring the space between two people who were never officially lovers, but stayed in each other's times way too long to mean nothing.
Which is a highly complex, incredibly heavy emotional state.
Right. It's super heavy.
Okay.
And it requires a very strong structural foundation to support it.
Exactly. If he just played like a sad, slow piano chord over those lyrics, the whole thing would just collapse under its own depressing weight. It would be too heavy.
It would just be a dirge.
Right. But by engineering an Afrobeat structure with its interlocking polyrhythms and forward momentum, he builds a framework that makes that heavy emotional weight bearable. He basically gives the listener a way to carry the sadness without being crushed by it.
Which is actually a perfect segue to another artist in the Afrobeat space who goes by vibez. Now, vibez has a breakout single called Love Shit. And unlike habefe's sort of nuanced structural melancholy, vibez is aggressively direct.
Very direct.
He is serving up this raw, unfiltered storytelling about highly toxic, unhealthy relationships. But again, it's set over these incredibly vibrant, pulsating, upbeat West African grooves.
It's the ultimate psychological juxtaposition, isn't it?
But why does it work so well? I mean, you are literally in the club dancing while the lyrics are breaking down a devastatingly toxic dynamic. Why do we love dancing to trauma?
Well, because it triggers a very specific biological catharsis. When you pair a lyrical narrative of pain or dysfunction, like vibez discussing toxicity and love shit, or his other track, My Sativa, when you pair that with a physical kinetic rhythm that literally commands your nervous system to move, you are essentially tricking your brain into processing the trauma.
Tricking it how? Like, scientifically?
It's called somatic processing. So when we experience emotional pain, our instinct is often to freeze, right? To tense up, to internalize it, to hide.
Yeah, the fight, flight, or freeze response.
Exactly. The rhythm disrupts that freeze response. The beat is constantly telling your nervous system, we are in motion, we are surviving this, we are moving forward. Wow.
It's an ancient human coping mechanism. You dance the pain out of the body. Vibez is taking a very modern, hyper-relatable experience, a toxic relationship, and filtering it through a rhythmic tradition that was fundamentally designed for communal healing and energy release.
So tracks like Love Shit resonate instantly because they balance the dark, heavy reality of the lyrics with the bright momentum of the beat.
You're in motion while you process the pain.
It's like sneaking medicine into a piece of candy, you know? You're processing your relational baggage while you're two-stepping.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, staying in Nigeria but shifting the genre a bit, let's look at johnsonrays. He is a reggae gospel artist.
Now that is a significant pivot in energy.
Extremely. He has an EP called God Did, an album called Belief, and a featured track called You and I. And the sources describe this track as being entirely about faith, quiet gratitude, and recognizing a higher presence in the still moments of life.
The still moments, that's key. Right. And looking at the broader landscape of 2026, I mean, the independent music industry feels obsessed with absolute sensory overload. Everything is a 15-second viral hook or a high-energy dance challenge or some really aggressive hustle anthem.
It's constant noise.
So how does a deeply faithful, slow, quiet reggae gospel track even survive in that kind of algorithm?
It survives precisely because it is the exact opposite of the algorithm. We are dealing with the economics of attention here.
Okay, unpack that.
In an era defined by extreme information overload. I mean, think about it. When you open your phone and you are instantly assaulted by notifications, outrage cycles, blaring advertisements, human attention operates like a pendulum.
It swings back and forth.
Exactly. When the baseline environment is overwhelmingly loud and chaotic, the most radical disruptive thing you can offer a listener is silence. Or, in Johnson-Ray's case, peace.
Peace as a disruptive technology. I hadn't thought of it like that.
It absolutely is. Music that offers spiritual grounding, like UNDI, it functions as a necessary sonic detox. The reggae rhythm is inherently steadying. It typically operates at a tempo that mimics a relaxed, resting human heartbeat.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. So when Johnson-Rays pairs that biological steadiness with themes of quiet gratitude, he isn't trying to compete with the high-energy club anthems. He is providing the antidote to them.
The market demand for inner peace in 2026 has to be astronomically high.
People are exhausted. Johnson-Rays is tapping into a desperate need for a spiritual and auditory sanctuary. He's not fighting the noise. He's offering the exit ramp.
I love that. He's the exit ramp. Okay, to wrap up our rhythm architect section, I want to move over to dancehall. Because if we are talking about the architecture of music, dancehall is built on perhaps the most collaborative structural concept in the history of the industry.
Oh, absolutely. The dance hall backbone.
Yeah, we have two figures here in the sources, a vocalist named Neural Knowledge 8 and a producer named mrlee.
This is where the concept of independent music becomes inherently communal.
So Neural Knowledge 8 has been writing since he was 14. He showcases this massive thematic duality. He has a track called Engrave You Love, which is this deep, poetic, long-lasting expression of romance. And then he pivots to a track called Sit Pony Tip, which is a highly playful, colorful, rhythmic track about bedroom intimacy.
A lot of range.
Right, but what's really interesting is the foundation he's building these vocals on. And that brings us to mrlee, who is the producer and engineer behind what the sources call dancehall rhythms. Now, for anyone listening who isn't deeply embedded in Caribbean music culture, can you explain what a rhythm actually is?
Sure.
Because in Western hip-hop, if a rapper buys a beat, that beat belongs to them. It's their song.
Right. Western music is largely built on hyper-individualism and exclusivity. The producer makes the instrumental, the artist buys the exclusive rights, and the beat is locked away in a vault. No one else can touch it.
The private property.
Exactly. The dancehall rhythm culture is the exact opposite. It is an open-source architecture. A producer like mrlee will create an instrumental foundation. You know, a specific drum pattern, a bass line, a chord progression. That is the rhythm.
Okay.
But instead of giving it to one artist, that exact same instrumental might be voiced by 10, 20, or even 50 different vocalists.
So it's essentially a shared canvas, like an architect building a massive apartment complex, and then 50 different artists move in and decorate their individual units over the exact same floor plan.
That is a perfect analogy. And it creates a brilliant symbiotic ecosystem. The producer provides the structural backbone, and the vocalist, like Neural Knowledge 8, provides the personality, the specific narrative, and the melodic variation.
That's so collaborative.
And because the rhythm is a shared language across multiple tracks, it fosters massive community engagement. Listeners will actively debate who had the best vocal performance on the mrlee rhythm. It turns music consumption from a passive experience into an active, comparative, communal event.
It's structural rhythm at its most democratic. So we've seen how these architects build structurally sound grooves. We've talked about the engineering of Afrobeats, the somatic healing of toxic pop, the detox of reggae, and the open source floor plans of dancehall.
A lot of building going on.
But here is the reality check. What happens when the environment you are trying to build your structure in is actively hostile?
Ah, yes.
Because sometimes you aren't building for romance or community. Sometimes you are building purely for economic survival. So let's pivot to section 2. Forging diamonds. We are diving into the economics, the emotional toll, and the relentless pressure of the independent street hustle.
This is the intersection where the art becomes entirely inseparable from the corporate strategy.
And there is no better embodiment of this than an artist out of Austin, Texas, who goes by Only One Siege. Looking at his bio, I was genuinely confused for a second. I really thought I was reading a prospectus for Silicon Valley startup.
It reads exactly like one.
He is the founder of Money Hungry Mafia, LLC. He founded a clothing line called StainX Angry Clothing, Inc., and he runs Moguls Overthrow Elites Publishing, Inc. He actually holds an associate's degree in business administration and business development.
That's a heavy resume.
His tracks are titled Diamonds and Gold and Sleeping on Me.
So I just have to ask, Has the definition of a hip-hop artist just permanently merged with the definition of a venture capitalist in 2026?
I think we have absolutely crossed that threshold. And the thing is, it is a shift born out of historical necessity.
What do you mean?
Well, if you look at the history of the music industry, it functioned largely as an exploitative feudal system.
Feudal, like lords and peasants.
Exactly. The artist was the laborer in the field, generating the raw commodity, the music. The record label was the feudal lord. They owned the distribution networks, the printing presses, the radio contacts, and most importantly, the capital.
Right. And because they controlled the infrastructure, they extracted the vast majority of the financial value, often locking artists into these predatory 360 deals where the label took a cut of everything, including touring and merchandise.
So the artist took all the creative risk, and the label took all the equity.
Precisely. What only one siege represents is a total systemic rejection of that feudal model. When an artist focuses on establishing LLCs, trademarking clothing lines, owning their own publishing, and managing independent distribution,
They're becoming the lord.
they are violently seizing the means of production. They are vertically integrating their entire creative life.
But doesn't that fundamentally change how we consume the music? Like, if the music is just one wing of a larger corporate entity, does it lose its artistic purity?
I would argue it redefines the art. When you listen to his track Diamonds and Gold and you read his description, quote, the hunger, the pain, the grind, when you've been counted out but still rise, you aren't just listening to a catchy hook.
What are you listening to?
You are listening to a corporate mission statement. The track is the billboard. It is the marketing engine meant to drive traffic to the LLC, the publishing house, and the apparel line. He is proving that in 2026, street-smart lyricism and high-level corporate structuring are the exact same language.
It's an incredible shift in mindset. And you see that same relentless entrepreneurial output when you look at artists like Young Blazer 1 and Gas Boy Zero. The guys are operating at a volume that seems almost superhuman.
The sheer velocity of their output is staggering.
Young Blazer 1 is operating in the trap and drill space. His project titles literally replace letters with currency symbols. Street money with a dollar sign. Time is money with a dollar sign. He's flooding every platform, pushing the self-made, relentless hustle narrative.
Right.
But then you look at Gas Boy Zero, an Afro-hip-hop artist from Benin. And he presents this fascinating psychological duality in the sources. He has a track called Todo Controlado, which translates to everything under control.
Very confident.
Super high-energy trap anthem about supreme confidence, owning your destiny, and just running the game. But right next to it, on the exact same showcase, he has a track called Why God. And the sources describe Why God as a deep cry of anguish directed towards a higher power, dealing with personal tragedy and immense suffering.
This duality is exactly what makes modern trap and drill music so psychologically complex.
How so?
Well, the street hustle, especially when you are an independent entity financing yourself, demands an impenetrable armor of supreme confidence. You have to project success to attract success. The market smells blood in the water.
Fake it till you make it on steroids.
Exactly. That is the energy of Young Blazer 1's Street Money or Gas Boy Z's Todo Controlado. It is the sonic manifestation of manifesting wealth. It's an auditory power pose.
But you can't hold a power pose 24 hours a day. Your muscles give out eventually.
Exactly. The armor is incredibly heavy. And the brilliance of an artist like Gas Boy Z is that he has the artistic courage to let the mask slip. Why God introduces deep lament and existential dread right alongside the bravado.
It's so honest.
It reveals the terrifying tightrope these independent artists are walking. The hustle isn't just a fun entrepreneurial journey. It is often a desperate, high-stakes sprint away from poverty, trauma, or systemic failure.
Wow.
By placing extreme confidence and extreme vulnerability back-to-back, Gas Boy Zero gives us a highly accurate psychological portrait of the modern independent creator. They are simultaneously the masters of their universe and completely terrified of losing everything.
It's the ultimate high wire act, and they are performing it without a net.
Speaking of navigating that high wire, let's look at two artists who embody the underdog mentality. We have Dodirtyduck from Tacoma, Washington, and therealkidcrook from Perth, Australia.
Two vastly different geographic locations, but they share a remarkably similar ethos.
Let's start with Dodirtyduck because his backstory is wild. He used to be part of an original Tacoma finance clique. He released an entire album under the name Ananize, but then he had a major dispute with his record company.
A classic industry story. Right, but instead of fighting it out in court forever, He completely left them, abandoned his established artist name, changed his identity to dodirtyduck, and is now dropping aggressive tracks like Get to Back.
A total reset.
He explicitly states in his bio, Tacoma, Washington, "We've been slept on too long. We are the underdog and want all bets." Now, changing your name after a label dispute seems like, I don't know, shooting yourself in the foot. You lose all your algorithmic momentum, your SEO, your brand recognition. Why burn it all down?
Because sometimes burning down the house is the only way to ensure the bank can't foreclose on it.
Wow. Scorched earth tactics.
Precisely. It is the ultimate act of reclaiming agency. The industry trying to own him, they tried to own the intellectual property of Ananias, so he erased the version of himself they had a claim to and built a new identity that is entirely sovereign.
And no one can touch it now.
Right. That is the core of the underdog mentality. And geography plays a massive role here, too. If you are in Tacoma, Washington, you are constantly pushing back against the massive cultural shadow of Seattle or Los Angeles.
You're always the little brother.
Exactly. And if you look at their therealkidcrook in Perth, Australia, I mean, Perth is literally one of the most geographically isolated major cities on the entire planet. That physical isolation breeds a very specific kind of hunger.
It forces you to rely entirely on yourself. Therealkidcrook has a line in his bio that I think belongs on a billboard. It says, "The dream is free. The hustle is sold separately."
It is the perfect summary of this entire section. Raw talent is the dream. It's free, but it is entirely meaningless without the grueling, unglamorous, highly tactical execution of the hustle.
And sometimes that execution requires you to just kick the door entirely off its hinges. Which brings us to slime-jul-doll, hailing from Kuruman in South Africa. He represents a genre called motswako trap. His track is titled, very simply, Fuck Y'all.
There is zero ambiguity in that title.
None whatsoever. The source describes it as a raw, unapologetic record, capturing real-life frustration, dark energy, and the fearless mindset of an artist refusing to be boxed in by doubters or fake support. But before we get into the psychology of the track, can you define motswako trap for us? What does that actually sound like?
Sure. Motswako is a fascinating South African subgenre that originated around maficking. The word motswako literally translates to mixture in Setswana.
Mixture what?
Historically, it involves blending English lyrics with Setswana and sometimes other local dialects. When you fuse that linguistic mixture with the heavy, distorted 808 bass lines and rapid-fire hi-hats of modern trap music, you get an incredibly aggressive, highly localized, yet globally resonant sound.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It is. The linguistic switching allows for a very unique rhythmic cadence that you simply can't achieve in purely English rap.
So it's a genre built entirely on fusion and disruption, which makes perfect sense for a track like Fuck Y'all. When I read the description of the song, it sounded to me like a controlled demolition.
How do you mean?
Well, you know, when a building is fundamentally compromised, and instead of trying to patch the drywall, engineers plant explosives in exactly the right structural columns to bring the whole thing down cleanly.
Yes.
That's what this song is. It's explosive anger, but he has channeled it perfectly into this 3-minute sonic format to destroy the fake friends, obliterate the doubt, and clear the ground so he can build something real.
A controlled demolition is a profound way to look at it. Anger and frustration are highly volatile energy sources. If you just let them explode wildly in your personal life, they destroy you, your relationships, your career.
Right, it's just destructive.
But if you can capture that dark energy, compress it, and force it through the strict rhythmic parameters of a motswako trap beat, it becomes rocket fuel. Slime-jul-doll isn't just venting, he is weaponizing his frustration against his obstacles.
All right, so we've explored the immense pressure of the hustle, the corporate structures, and the armor these artists have to wear to survive a hostile industry. You can't be a venture capitalist all day, and you can't be detonating buildings all night.
It's exhausting.
Eventually, the armor has to come off. What does it sound like when these independent artists let the listeners see their actual, unvarnished anxieties? That brings us to Section 3. The vulnerable voice.
This is where we see the profound emotional intelligence of the 2026 independent artist. We are moving past the bravado and looking at the raw nerve endings.
We are looking at artists who are openly prioritizing mental health, dissecting relational red flags, and just admitting how fundamentally exhausted they are by modern life. I want to start with an R&B soul artist named Droozy.
Oh, this track is fascinating.
Droozy has a track called Blame. And the description of this track absolutely stopped me in my tracks. It says the song explores anxiety, pressure, and paranoia, specifically about being stuck in a self-checkout line.
It is brilliant in its mundane specificity.
But a whole hybrid trap R&B track about a grocery store. When I first read that, I laughed. But then I really thought about it. Why does a mundane, everyday task like going through a self-checkout line induce such profound paranoia that it inspires a song about pressure?
Because the self-checkout line is the ultimate physical manifestation of late-stage capitalist anxiety.
Okay, break that down for me.
Let's look at the sociology of that experience. You are in a grocery store trying to buy food to survive. You are now expected to perform unpaid labor. You are the cashier. You are the bagger. But crucially, you are not trusted.
Right, there's that camera staring right at your face on the screen.
Exactly. It is the modern panopticon. You are under the constant, unblinking surveillance of a machine. The kiosk is judging your every movement. If you place an item down a fraction of a second too late, what happens?
The machine barks at you about an unexpected item in the bagging area.
Yes. A red light flashes above you like a siren. The machine freezes, and you have to stand there publicly humiliated, waiting for an underpaid employee to walk over, scan a barcode, and clear your error, publicly confirming your incompetence at this unpaid job.
Oh my God. When you frame it like that, it sounds like a literal dystopian psychological thriller.
It is. It represents the constant pressure to perform perfectly in an increasingly automated, unforgiving world. By translating this incredibly specific, mundane anxiety into a track, Droozy is proving that modern vulnerability isn't just about crying in the rain over a lost lover.
Yo, it's about real life.
It's about acknowledging the low-grade, constant hum of paranoia that defines 2026. To make a compelling R&B track out of grocery store anxiety is sheer genius. It connects instantly because every single person listening knows that exact spike in heart rate when the scanner doesn't read the barcode.
We're all just terrified of the unexpected item voice. It's so real. Now, moving from societal automated anxiety to interpersonal anxiety, we have an Afrobeats artist named slime-jul-doll.
Truth in the pattern.
Yes, his track is called Truth in the Pattern, and this song is described as focusing on emotional clarity. It's about that moment when feelings are incredibly strong, but someone's actions start revealing a completely different story. It's about spotting red flags and realizing that behavioral patterns do not lie.
What really stands out here is the sheer maturity of the thematic approach.
Exactly. It's not a revenge track.
Oh.
It's not a, you broke my heart, I'm going to destroy your car track.
Right. Historically, so much relationship-based music was purely reactionary. It lived at the extremes, either blinding, fiery infatuation or toxic, scorched earth vengeance.
There's no middle ground.
Truth in the Pattern represents a massive evolutionary step in songwriting. It is about the quiet, devastating realization of cognitive dissonance. It's the moment you realize that someone's words say one thing, but their historical pattern of behavior says another. slime-jul-doll is essentially applying the scientific method to a romantic relationship.
The scientific method. How so?
Well, he is stepping back from the emotion, observing the behavioral data points over time, recognizing the statistical pattern, and choosing objective truth over the subjective illusion of the romance.
Wow.
It is deeply emotionally intelligent. It's the sound of someone choosing their long-term peace over short-term chaotic passion.
And that theme of observing chaos and choosing to analyze it rather than just react to it brings us to our next two artists. We have tabakate3gmail.com and a veteran group called 85 Squad.
This is a fascinating pairing. It gives us two completely different generational lenses on societal critique.
Let's look at the contrast. We have tabakate3gmail.com, who released a track called Falling Apart. The description says it deals with the lack of respect people have these days and how the artist feels the world is just generally falling apart. It's a very raw, immediate, almost shell-shocked sense of disillusionment.
Very visceral.
But right next to him, we have 85 Squad. Now, 85 Squad is a hip-hop duo from Kaduna, Nigeria, made up of Bobby Wayne and Get Medic. And they are not rookies. They have been operating since 2005. That is over 2 decades in the game.
Incredible longevity.
They are focused on conscious rap and what they term street gospel. They drop tracks like Rat Race, analyzing the literal race of life, and Bro Code, discussing the ethics of brotherly love. Before we compare them, you mentioned in your notes that 85 Squad uses a Hausa fusion. What does that mean for the listener?
Hausa is one of the largest spoken languages in West Africa, primarily in northern Nigeria, where Kaduna is located. It is a highly rhythmic, tonal language.
Okay.
When an artist fuses the cadence of the Hausa language with the boom-bap drums or modern trap hi-hats of hip-hop, it completely changes the pocket of the flow. It bridges deep ancestral linguistic roots with contemporary urban street culture.
That's a powerful combination.
It allows them to speak directly to their local demographic while providing a totally unique sonic texture for a global audience.
Which gives their message an incredible amount of weight. And if we put 85 Squad next to tabakit3gmail.com, the contrast is stark.
Is the evolution of perspective. Tabakit3gmail.com is expressing the acute, immediate pain of feeling the world fall apart right now. It's the initial shock of witnessing the lack of respect in society. It is highly reactive.
Like staring at a car crash.
Yes. But 85 Squad has been analyzing this exact same rat race since 2005. They have watched the world fall apart and clumsily stitch itself back together multiple times.
They survived the panic and settled into the philosophy.
Exactly. And what their 20-year longevity proves is that conscious, ethically driven, socially aware hip-hop has incredible staying power. The industry tries to tell artists that they need a viral dance trend to survive. But viral dances fade in a week.
They're disposable.
Music that attempts to educate, uplift, and analyze the human condition builds a legacy. 85 Squad isn't just reacting to the headlines. They are offering a sustained 20-year philosophical commentary on the human condition.
It's the difference between a breaking news alert and a history book. And speaking of grounding the listener, the final artist in our Vulnerable Voice section is youngrren, a Kenyan hip-hop artist.
Ah, youngrren, the storyteller.
He blends golden-era hip-hop storytelling with new-school grit. His bio notes that his sound hits like a knockout punch, but he has a deep, almost cinematic knack for narrative, especially on his track. This is it, featuring Kingfish.
Storytelling is literally the oldest form of human emotional regulation.
And think about the listener's journey today. When you were overwhelmed by everything we just discussed, the panopticon of the self-checkout line, the toxicity of modern dating, the sheer exhaustion of the societal rat race sometimes, a masterfully told story in a hip-hop track is the only thing that pulls you out of your own spiraling thoughts.
It acts as a lifeline.
youngrren is using that classic golden-era tool, the linear narrative, to cut through the overwhelming saturation of the modern landscape.
He provides a cognitive anchor. When the world is chaotic and unpredictable, a structured story with a clear beginning, middle, and end provides the human brain with immense relief. It creates order out of chaos.
Okay, so we've seen the raw, vulnerable emotion. We've dissected the intense street hustle and the LLCs. We've mapped out the structural engineering of the rhythms. Now we arrive at our final destination today. Section 4. The wildcards.
The rule breakers. The artists and executives who look at the current infrastructure and decide to build something entirely different.
We are looking at the masterminds operating entirely outside the standard rules. These are the producers, the multi-hyphenates, and the veterans who are building the actual economic infrastructure of tomorrow's music industry. I want to start with two massive forces in production, a producer named Bangazbyboon and an indie label called brickline-records.
These are two brilliant, completely opposing case studies in modern music economics.
Let's look at Bangazbyboon first. He is known as the Melody King. He operates across the East Coast, West Coast, anywhere. But the crazy thing is, he handles the entire creative life cycle himself.
From start to finish.
From the first synth melody to the final mastering phase. And by doing this, he has achieved top 5 rankings in competitive hip-hop and trap subgenres through 100% organic, viral growth. He just builds world-class instrumentals like his track Trap Fire and controls the entire pipeline.
Incredible self-reliance.
On the other hand, you have brickline-records. Their motto is bold beats, real vibes. But here is their wild strategy. They produce countless beats, and instead of hoarding them, instead of selling exclusive rights for thousands of dollars, they take their unused beats and literally give them away to creators, musicians, and dreamers for free.
Which completely upends the traditional concept of intellectual property and ownership.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. Giving away your beats for free, that sounds like a massive race to the bottom. If everyone gives away their art, how does the label pay rent? It sounds less like a brilliant strategy and more like starving artist syndrome.
It sounds like that if you view music purely as a transactional commodity. But brickline-records is treating music like software. They are adopting an open-source mentality identical to how massive Silicon Valley tech companies operate. Think about it. Why does a multi-billion-dollar tech company make its core code open source for any developer to use for free?
To get everyone dependent on their ecosystem.
Exactly. It builds a massive, loyal ecosystem. Developers use the free code, they build applications on top of it, and they become fiercely loyal to the parent company. Brickline is doing the exact same thing with audio.
Oh, that is smart.
By giving beats away to dreamers, they are seeding the market. They are building an army of independent creators who view the label not as an exploitative corporate entity trying to bleed them dry, but as a benevolent collaborative partner.
So it's an investment.
Those free beats act as loss leaders. When one of those dreamers eventually blows up and goes viral, who do you think they're going to sign with? The traditional label that ignored them, or brickline-records, who gave them the foundation for free?
Wow. It's goodwill marketing functioning as long-term venture capital.
Precisely. And then you look at bangazbyboon, who represents the opposite extreme hyper-competent self-reliance. By owning the entire life cycle of the beat producing, mixing, mastering, he eliminates every single bottleneck.
He doesn't have to wait for anyone.
He doesn't have to wait 2 weeks for an engineer to return a mix. He moves at the exact speed of the internet. And in 2026, algorithmic virality favors speed and quality above all else. His organic growth proves that if your product is undeniably good and you control the release mechanism, the algorithm will eventually reward you. The gatekeepers are gone, the best beats win.
Now, taking a sharp thematic turn away from hip-hop beats, we have an artist named Tone123, also known as Anthony Cairns.
The ultimate palette cleanser of the showcase.
Definitely. He is pushing boundaries in electronic and instrumental music. He has tracks titled Abstract Noise and Destination Unknown. After spending the last 45 minutes talking about lyrics involving grocery store anxiety, the rat race, and toxic dating, listening to a completely instrumental track like Abstract Noise feels like stepping into a sensory deprivation tank.
And that serves a highly specific psychological purpose for the listener.
What do you mean?
When a track is entirely instrumental and abstract, it lacks explicit semantic meaning. There is no vocalist telling you what to feel, what political stance to take, or what narrative to follow. It represents a semantic void.
And the brain hates a void.
Exactly. Nature abhors a vacuum, and the human brain abhors a lack of narrative. So when Tone123 creates this vast, atmospheric, instrumental space, it requires the listener to actively project their own internal emotional state onto the music to fill the void.
Oh, wow.
He is engaging in sonic world building, but he leaves the role of the protagonist entirely empty. You step into the track, it demands active psychological participation rather than passive lyrical consumption.
You literally become the main character of Abstract Noise. I love that. Now, we need to talk about the veterans, because when the media talks about new independent artists, the stereotypical image is an 18-year-old going viral on TikTok from their childhood bedroom.
It's a very narrow view.
But our next artist completely shatters that ageist stereotype. We are traveling to Durban, South Africa to talk about Nasleferso's 2025.
This might be one of the most profound, inspiring stories in the entire source stack.
It really is. So, Naslefer's 2025 is releasing his debut album in 2026 titled Crown Meta KRON 2.0. It's a massive, ambitious project blending English hip-hop and Afrikaans rap, featuring artists from all over South Africa.
But what is absolutely wild to me is his bio.
It's not a typical music bio.
No, it is literally a detailed resume of his non-music corporate career.
He wears his day job as a badge of honor.
Yes. The bio details how he worked in retail and logistics from 2005 all the way to 2026. She worked at Markham, he was a contract agent for Celsi, and for the last 6 years, he was a warehouse manager for Fernco, overseeing overall stock and floor management.
That's a lot of responsibility.
And now, after 20 years in the corporate and retail world, he is dropping this massive 16-track global debut. Now, the music industry tells you that if you aren't signed by 21, your dream is dead. This guy spent 2 decades managing inventory, and now he's launching a global album.
And this is a profound lesson for anyone listening right now, regardless of what field you're operating in. Absolutely.
The overarching societal narrative tells us that working at a warehouse or in retail is a distraction from your true art. It tells you that a day job is a failure. What Nasleferso 25 proves is that absolutely no time is wasted.
Think about the skills he picked up.
Think about the immense logistical skills required to be a warehouse manager for a major company. You have to track thousands of moving parts. You have to coordinate disparate teams. You have to manage supply chain logistics, predict demand, and solve catastrophic crises in real time.
Wait, that sounds exactly like coordinating a 16-track collaborative album launch globally across Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube.
It is the exact same executive skill set. The operational discipline he learned managing inventory and 4 staff at Fernco is precisely the operational discipline required to execute a global independent album rollout in 2026.
Mind blown.
He didn't delay his music career. He spent 20 years in a corporate boot camp building the ultimate executive skill set. When he finally dropped his debut, he didn't need a label manager because he already knew exactly how to manage a massive operation. It is a masterclass in recognizing and weaponizing transferable skills.
That is incredibly inspiring. Do not hide your day job. Weaponize the logistics it taught you. All right, we've arrived at our final artist, and I genuinely don't even know how to set this one up because it is just pure, unfiltered, glorious chaos.
The wild card of all wild cards.
Oh my goodness. We are talking about an artist named engrpp. So engrpp is originally from Edo State in Nigeria, currently living in France, and I'm just going to read his self-described titles from his bio.
Please do.
He claims to be an engineer, a comedian, an MC, a real estate agent, an artist, a singer, a rapper, a dancer, a model, and an influencer. He explicitly asks in his bio for publicity, sponsors, partnerships, and begs for people to use his songs for content.
He's casting a very wide net.
But the absolute peak of this is one of his track titles. I have to read this exactly as it is written in the sources. The track is called, quote, Sex Y, Mama, Beautiful Woman, Rich Sugar Mummy Girl, Boy, Big Daddy.
It is a masterpiece of modern digital strategy.
I am in genuine awe of the audacity. But I have to ask, is he just throwing absolute garbage at the wall? It looks like pure spam. Is there actually a genius hidden in this chaos, or is it just noise?
There is absolute genius in it. What you are laughing at and what makes you remember him vividly right now is that engrpp understands the internet fundamentally better than polished traditional PR agencies.
Really?
Yes, we live in an SEO-driven algorithmic world.
Okay, break that down. How does his chaos manipulate the algorithm?
In 2026, recommendation engines like Spotify or TikTok do not index for tastefulness or subtlety. They don't care about that. Neural networks cluster user preferences based on metadata density. Algorithms only care about keywords and engagement nodes.
So the titles matter.
Massively. By tagging himself as a comedian, an MC, and a real estate agent, engrpp is creating massive overlapping Venn diagrams of search traffic. If someone in France is searching for Edo State real estate, the algorithm might serve them his music. It's a cross-pollination mechanism.
Oh, that's why.
And look at that track title. Sexy Mama, Beautiful Woman, Rich Sugar Mummy Girl, Boy, Big Baddie. He is literally keyword stuffing his own art. He is hitting every single conceivable demographic search term in one string.
He is functioning as a human SEO tactic.
Exactly. It is pure, unapologetic, maximalist marketing. In an ecosystem where 100,000 new songs are uploaded to streaming platforms every single day, being polite, subtle, and curated gets you completely ignored.
You just get lost in the feed.
Being a maximalist, multi-hyphenate, real estate agent, comedian, rapper guarantees that the neural network and the human listener will not forget you. It is survival of the loudest, and he has built the biggest megaphone possible.
Well, I will certainly never forget the name engrpp. Okay, let's pull all of this together. We've just traveled an immense amount of conceptual and geographic ground today in this deep dive.
We really have.
We started with the structural, tension-bearing engineering mindsets of Afrobeats artists like habefe and the communal, open-source architecture of dancehall rhythms with mrlee.
The builders.
Right. We marched through the hyper-entrepreneurial, venture capitalist hustle of Only One Siege and the controlled, explosive demolitions of slime-jul-doll's Motswako trap. We stripped back the heavy armor to examine the mundane, dystopian grocery store anxieties of Droozy and the 2-decade sustained societal critiques of 85 Squad.
The raw vulnerability.
And finally, we looked at the architects changing the rules of the game, from the loss leader economics of open source beats to Nasli for Sake 2025 turning 20 years of warehouse management into a global logistics rollout, to the beautiful algorithmic chaos of engrpp.
It is a breathtaking snapshot of human ingenuity, isn't it?
It really is.
And if there's a core thesis to take away from analyzing these 21 artists, it is this. For you, the listener, your unique, weird, highly specific lived experience is your greatest asset.
100%.
Whether you are prepping for a boardroom meeting, building a tech startup, or just trying to survive the mundane paranoia of modern life, look at the blueprint these artists provided. They didn't succeed by trying to sand down their edges to sound like a generic, focus grouped pop star.
No, they leaned into it.
They succeeded by weaponizing their reality. Do not hide your 20 years in retail. Do not hide your hyper-specific anxieties or your street-level hustle. Translate them, engineer them, turn them into your corporate structure, your art, and your armor.
I could agree more.
Yeah.
We just spent an hour dissecting artists who looked at that massive, impenetrable fortress of the old music industry, realized the walls were an illusion, and simply walked right past the gatekeepers to get their voices heard.
They just walked right in.
And it leaves you with a pretty massive question. If the gates are finally wide open, and literally anyone from a dorm room in Nigeria to a warehouse in South Africa can broadcast their unvarnished soul to the entire globe, what excuse do the rest of us have for keeping our own creative ideas locked in the drafts folder?
The drawbridge is down. It's time to cross it.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the things that move you. Take care, everyone.